buses. And since all of you, many of you have taken OWL, I will admit my situation at the time of this, this story, and that was that I had very, very painful cramps the whole day. And I was ill in other ways as well. I don't see anybody getting embarrassed and running out. That's good. And I was hungry, and we were really, really tired. We had been traveling on public buses. I only knew a few words in Chinese. Actually, I can write Chinese characters because it's the same as Japanese. So I was just going around with my little book, writing to people, and then they'd write something back, and then I'd write to them. And it was exhausting. So I was exhausted. I was all of those things pretty much. I think I was even hungry. Have you ever heard of HALT? It's hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and Lou and I had been on our own, and it's like when you're H-A-L-T, you don't do anything, you go home and you sit. But we couldn't because we were on a trip, and so we were out and about, and we were waiting at a bus stop, and I was in pain. And someone came up behind me, and just as I was getting on the bus, reached up and touched me in a really horrible way, which I think you can imagine. And I was shocked, and I was angry. It was like all of the things of that trip that had been so hard for us because people that gathered around us staring at us all the time just came up. And so I was getting on the bus, this person reached up and grabbed me and touched me, and I stood on that bus and I saw this man and I said, "That's the one who did it," and I went up to him and I hit him. I was in my 30s, it was a long time ago, I don't do that anymore. Okay. So Lou and I then the doors to the bus close. And Lou and I are on this bus, and then I realize that wasn't the man. It wasn't the person who did that. And I went up to him, and I tried to speak Chinese to him, but all I could say was, "I am an American," which doesn't help. And things like, I was trying to remember from my beginning Chinese class, things. And then I wrote him things like, "I'm sorry," and he just glared at me. The next part of the story, Lou looks really good because she saved me from perhaps being killed by this person who no, and I'm serious, he was very, very angry, and he told his friend, and he waited behind us, and when we got off the bus, and Lou shielded me from behind, and he kicked her really, really hard. And thank heavens he didn't get off the bus with us, because, I don't know, he was angry. So I tell you this story because this story taught me an important lesson. It taught me that revenge doesn't work. It also taught me that very often when you try to get revenge, you hit the wrong person. So I give you the truth of that story so that you do not have to be on that bus. I'm sure none of you would do something like that. I want you to think about the injustices that make you angry. There are so many around us. Another one I have, the one I have right now, my own personal injustice right now, is that a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, Lou and I bought a car. My old car died, and for the first time in my life, we thought, let's buy a new car. And we looked up on the internet, we did all this research. In fact, at the time we were at General Assembly and we looked for a car that would be safe and that would get really good mileage. And it was right after the tsunami, so there weren't Priuses, and that was a little out of my price range. So I didn't consider one of those, and I thought, well, this has the best mileage that I could get outside of a Prius. But then, and it wasn't so bad when we were living in Arizona, because I was mostly on the highway. But then after we moved here, the mileage that I'm getting is really, really bad. It's like, I mean, I could have gotten an old clunker and gotten similar mileage. So I'm not feeling very good about this. And I go to the dealership. Don't worry, I didn't get angry. I went to the dealership, and somebody at the dealership asked, they said, you know, we give out gas cards for people who have your kind of car because, you know, it hasn't gotten very good mileage, and so we can give you gas cards to help pay for the gas. And I wanted to scream at them. This was not the point. The point was I didn't want to use that much gasoline. So this puts me in a really big quandary because I love my car. I don't want to hate my car. I don't want to feel horrible when I get in it. And I don't want to spend my money and time suing a car company. It just doesn't seem like it's worth my trouble. Or I don't know. It just doesn't seem like where I want to spend my energy. But that car triggers in me another greater anger and frustration that has to do with the dirty winter air in Salt Lake Valley and my lack of ability to do anything about it, and the lack of strength on the part of lawmakers to make and enforce stronger controls on factory and automobile emissions. And that connects with my horrible feelings about global warming, the plight of the penguins and the polar bears, and I'm serious, I can cry over penguins and polar bears, and so much more. But this has been true for many years. I can understand why terrorism happens. I mean, I get that. I get the heart of the terrorist. But I don't want to go that route. I have to find another way to justice. And one of my greatest teachers has been Mohandas Gandhi. I'm saying Mohandas on purpose. I'm talking about the young Gandhi, before he became to be called Mahatma, Sanskrit meaning the large life or great soul. As many of you know, he studied law in England, and then at some point he moved to South Africa to practice. And once when he was there, he was going from one place to the other, and he bought a ticket for a train. He was on a first-class compartment when he was kicked off because he was the wrong color. He was not white, so he could not ride on that train. And when he tried to protest, he was severely beaten. Over and over again, and his book, Experiments in Truth, became a kind of Bible to me when I was feeling so much anger during the first years we lived in Japan after we had left a difficult situation in the United States. Because Mohandas Gandhi knew what to do with anger. He knew how to create strength and energy from his hardships. This became like a kind of fossil fuel from the layers and layers of life that formed and that lived on this earth. He waited to act until he was in a wiser frame of mind. I'm so glad he didn't hit that inspector on the train. Somehow, he was able to look beyond revenge against a few individuals, and together they were able to overthrow a system of colonialism. By waiting, he was able to attack the system rather than individuals. There are so many circumstances, so many times in Gandhi's life that could have become the heart of one of those movies of revenge that we often call justice. Imagine, Gandhi is treated badly on the train. He goes back to Johannesburg and makes contact with the gun dealers, and they wreak revenge all over South Africa, blowing up trains and government buildings. He wrote, after he explained many of these times, at one point in his book, and I tried to find it the other day and I couldn't, but I found it when I needed it many years ago. He said something like, "I decided to choose my battle." One battle after another came to him, and he stood back and chose. Last Sunday, it was my responsibility to talk with the newcomers about why one becomes a Unitarian Universalist. And I'm afraid sometimes after Sunday, my vision is more limited than it should be. I just couldn't see the big picture. Of course I could when I got home. I remembered everything that I should have said that I didn't say at the time. I'm wonderful in hindsight. And when I got home, I remembered a story that Connie Gates had given when she talked about a guest at our table. She talked about how one piece of straw is easily broken, but where if you take all of those pieces of straw together, you cannot break them. Together we are strong. Without each other's strength to make a movement, we settle on revenge instead of justice. And as I told you, revenge does not work. Part of why it was important for Mohandas Gandhi to wait was that he needed to gather people around him. He could not do it on his own. He could not make the movement. When you sign the book to become a Unitarian Universalist member of this congregation, you become part of the Unitarian Universalist Association. This is a powerful association of people with hearts and minds set on justice. Together, and by simply becoming a member of this congregation, you become a part of an interconnected web of people working towards justice. I have colleagues who are marching for the tomato workers in Florida. Another congregation in New York State has established a center for immigrants, and yet another in Ventura, California, has an amazing program for the homeless. We have gathered people here. We have been an oasis to many people in this valley. If you are intrigued about what I am saying about the Unitarian Universalist Association, I encourage you to look at our wonderful publication, The UU World, or at uua.org. But better still, I would like to encourage you to come to one of our large gatherings. On April 26th, there will be a regional meeting in the Pacific Western Regional Assembly. This will be held in San Jose, California. And from June 19th to 23rd, our General Assembly will be held in Louisville, Kentucky. These meetings fill me with hope, because in them we learn how other people are making a difference. and how we can join forces with them. Lou and I will be there in Louisville, and we'd love you to be there with us. We'd love to meet in the evenings after a full day of meetings and demonstrations and singing with all those other people who have bumper stickers on the backs of their cars. And we can take these ideas home to this congregation, to Salt Lake City. Together we can be a formidable force for change. And General Assembly is a place where we can gather force and power, where we do not feel that we are alone. Last week, I asked you to write about what burns in your heart, what stirs your souls, and your voices call for justice in this sanctuary. Just opposite our chapel in the back, there is a bulletin board, and I have put those things, with help from Jan and other people, we have put them up on that board for you to see. These are the things that stir in our hearts. Many of you wrote about taking care of the earth. And out of everything you wrote, I am choosing those words about supporting and healing the environment, because in around 6 weeks, we will have a very important birthday for this community. We will commemorate 30 years of South Valley history on Earth Day. I have always believed that birthdays are a time to take steps, to help us feel better about turning the age we're turning. I often do something big right before my birthday, so then I can think of my age and think, oh, it's not that bad, I did that thing. On Earth Day, wouldn't it be wonderful for us to talk about our plans for the future, as well as what we are doing right now, and what we have done in the past? These are some of the visions that burn in your hearts that you wrote last week. Advocate for clean air. Join with other groups to create a groundwell of public support. A vision of cleaner air. Do you see this? A trend we have. Transforming our church into a place as green as possible. Vision of pledges, bringing in enough to do this, plus so many other things. Another one. I share a prayer that I can find a way to help clean up the air in Salt Lake City. A realistic way that one person can do, to make this happen. Peace on earth and no more wars. Another person. I envision breathing air that does not choke me or make my eyes burn. Amen. Someone else says, more community work parties, tackle jobs together, clean air, protect bees, save rainforests, stop pipelines, wind energy, wave energy, no idling in cars. Another person, for SVUUS to become more green, to use less and recycle more, not to waste food after our gatherings. Another one, I pray for a sharing of common vision to face the need for a clean environment for generations to come. Another that kind of includes all of these, sustain our earth. During these next 6 weeks, before we turn 30, while we are sharing our plate with a specific goal of more energy-efficient lighting in the social hall, I invite you to talk about what we can do as a congregation. May these 6 weeks be a kind of time like a think tank to turn our energy into practical actions that will make this community more ecologically sustainable. We are called to make use of all that energy that sits within us. If we don't gather together to make justice, we feel helpless. That's an awful feeling. If it goes too long, we feel depressed, or we resort to revenge. I think that's what's happening when those mean people won't let me turn in when I have my blinker on and they just look at me. I think they have things inside that they need to turn into positive action. Doing nothing with what we believe in, with what angers us, with what deprives us of rights, diminishes our souls rather than makes them large. Mahatma Gandhi, the one whose soul kept growing and growing through his life, he waited until the right moment to act, until he had found people who shared his view of justice and what needed to be done. And this is why we gather together. One of the reasons. It is to use our feelings of injustice constructively and make a difference. I found a great example of this in our community in The Catalyst, that wonderful local monthly free paper. Doreen Kulikowski's daughter, Bianca Windward, has a blog, Be Localicious Utah, that directs readers towards making a difference for decreasing our carbon footprint through showing us where we can buy local produce in Salt Lake City supermarkets, CSAs, and farmers markets. There are lots of experts in this room. Experts in making home gardens and raising chickens for eggs in this city. 2 amazing South Valley cooks are going to do a workshop on vegan cooking during the next month. And those of you who are concerned about clean air, and Lou and I will be right there among you, let us meet to see how we can use carpooling and public transportation to reduce our fossil footprint. During the next weeks, the Social Action Council and many individuals such as Tucker Gurney, I hope this isn't a surprise, Tucker, and some folks at Interfaith Power and Light will be facilitating our joining together and looking for compatriots who share that burning in our soul. We are planning meetings about the possibilities of solar panels for our building and the ways we can carpool and eat more local food. I've been even looking into bus routes that could keep me out of that car. And I encourage you, don't wait for someone to come up to you and tell you what to do. For I believe that we have those answers already among us. Reach out to people in the Cottonwood Cafe, even during the beach party following the service. You might be standing or sitting next to someone who has the same concern and needs your ideas. What things can you do? As we move towards a very important anniversary on Earth Day, let us take time to figure out how we can put our visions into action. That is the work of justice. May it be so. Amen.